When my sister announced her baby's name, my entire family went silent because it was the same name as my childhood bully who nearly drove me to suicide. The name was Jessica, and hearing it spoken in that hospital room brought back every nightmare from the worst 3 years of my life. But what I didn't know yet was that my sister choosing that name wasn't an accident. I was 28 years old, standing in the maternity ward with flowers when Sarah dropped this bombshell. She had just given birth after 18 hours of labor, and our entire family was celebrating when she smiled and said those words that made my blood freeze. "Everyone, meet Jessica Marie." My mother went white. My father stepped backward like he'd been slapped. My grandmother gasped so loud that a nurse came running. Everyone knew exactly why that name was poison in our family, and everyone understood that Sarah had just declared war on me. But let me explain why Jessica Morrison nearly destroyed my entire family when I was 13 years old. I was in 7th grade when Jessica transferred to our school. She was everything I wanted to be: confident, popular, beautiful. When she started sitting with me at lunch, I thought I'd finally found my place in the brutal social hierarchy of middle school. I was wrong. What I didn't realize was that Jessica wasn't interested in friendship. She was studying me, learning my weaknesses, so she could use them as weapons later. The kindness she showed me was just her way of getting close enough to destroy me completely. The bullying started small. Comments about my clothes that stung just enough to hurt, but seemed accidental to teachers. She'd exclude me from group activities while making it look unintentional. But Jessica was just getting started. Within weeks, she escalated to spreading rumors designed to humiliate me as much as possible. She told everyone I smelled bad, that my family was poor, that I was desperate for attention because my parents didn't love me. But those lies were nothing compared to what came next. Jessica claimed I had tried to kiss her at a sleepover that never happened, which started whispers about my sexuality that followed me everywhere. She said I'd stolen money from her backpack, making other students suspicious of me. She even convinced people that I was stalking her, turning my attempts to defend myself into evidence of obsession. But the psychological warfare was worse than the rumors. Jessica had a gift for finding exactly the right words to destroy my self-esteem with surgical precision. She'd comment on my appearance in ways that made me hate looking in mirrors. She'd mock my voice, my laugh, my walk, anything that made me fundamentally me. The torture followed me home too. Jessica would call our house and hang up repeatedly, sometimes 50 times in one night. She'd have friends leave cruel messages on our answering machine. She'd show up at the grocery store or library just to continue the harassment outside school hours. What made it unbearable was how skilled Jessica was at avoiding consequences. She was charming with adults, presenting herself as innocent, while making my life hell when no one was watching. When I reported her behavior, she'd deny everything and make me look like I was lying. My mental health collapsed rapidly. I stopped sleeping, stopped eating, lost dangerous amounts of weight. My grades plummeted because I couldn't concentrate on anything except the daily torture I was enduring. I started having panic attacks whenever I saw her in the hallways. My parents knew something was wrong, but I was too ashamed to tell them the full truth. I thought if I admitted how powerless I was against one girl, they'd think I was weak and pathetic. I was terrified that their intervention would only make Jessica's treatment worse. The breaking point came during a school assembly. Jessica had orchestrated what she called a joke, but which was actually a public execution designed to finish me off completely. As I walked into the auditorium, she stood up and started slow clapping, announcing to 300 students that I had finally decided to show my face in public. The entire room erupted in laughter and pointing. The humiliation was so complete and so public that I ran out of the building and didn't stop running until I collapsed in my bedroom. That night, I wrote my suicide note. I was 13 years old and convinced the world would be better without me. I felt like there was something fundamentally wrong with me that made me deserve Jessica's treatment. I couldn't see any way the torture would ever end, so I decided to end myself instead. Fortunately, my mother found the note before I could act on it. The next morning, I woke up to find my parents sitting on my bed with tears streaming down their faces, holding the piece of paper that contained all my pain and desperation. That was the moment the full truth about Jessica finally came out. My parents were horrified that they had been so blind to what was happening to me. They immediately pulled me out of school and arranged for homeschooling for the rest of the year. We moved to a different town before high school, so I could start fresh, but the damage Jessica had done followed me for years. I struggled with social anxiety, depression, and trust issues that affected every relationship I tried to build. The name Jessica became a trigger word that could send me into panic attacks. My entire family was traumatized by how close they came to losing me. My parents blamed themselves for not recognizing the signs sooner. My sister Sarah, who was only 10 at the time, developed anxiety issues after witnessing my breakdown. The whole experience bonded us together in our shared understanding of how dangerous bullying could be. Or so I thought. Recovery took years of therapy, medication, and my family's unwavering support. I slowly learned to recognize Jessica's voice in my head as lies rather than truth. I built a successful career as a graphic designer, formed healthy relationships, and thought I had moved past the trauma. The name Jessica remained a family trigger that everyone respected. If we met someone with that name, my family would immediately notice my reaction and try to protect me from prolonged interaction. It wasn't discussed openly, but everyone understood that the name carried too much painful history for me to handle casually. Which is why Sarah's announcement in that hospital room was so devastating. After the initial shock wore off, I pulled Sarah aside and asked if she understood what she had just done. I reminded her of our family history with that name and asked if she had considered how her choice might affect me. Her response was worse than I could have imagined. She told me she was tired of our family tiptoeing around my trauma and that it was time for me to get over what happened in middle school 15 years ago. She said Jessica was a beautiful name, and she wasn't going to let my issues prevent her from using it. But then she said something that made my blood run cold. Besides, Jessica Morrison reached out to me on Facebook 2 years ago. She's actually really sweet now. She even helped me pick out the name. The room started spinning. My sister had been in contact with my childhood bully for 2 years and never told me. Not only had she chosen the most triggering name possible, but she had chosen it with input from the person who had nearly driven me to suicide. When I asked Sarah why she would hide something like that from me, her mask finally slipped completely. She told me that Jessica had explained her side of the story, and it was very different from mine. According to Jessica, I had been the real bully, making her life miserable with jealousy and obsessive behavior. Sarah said that Jessica had apologized for any misunderstandings that might have occurred, but that she felt like she had been unfairly demonized by our family based on my exaggerated version of events. Sarah had decided that naming her daughter Jessica would be a way to show that our family was ready to move on from ancient grudges. I was speechless. My own sister had chosen to believe my tormentor over me and had been secretly communicating with her for years. She had let Jessica manipulate her into questioning my memories and experiences, turning my trauma into a weapon against me once again. But the worst was yet to come. Sarah pulled out her phone and showed me messages from Jessica congratulating her on the name choice. In the text, Jessica wrote that she was so happy Sarah had chosen to honor their friendship this way, and that she hoped this would help heal the rift that my lies had caused in our family. Reading those messages, I realized that this wasn't just about my sister being thoughtless or cruel. This was Jessica continuing her campaign against me 15 years later, using my own family member as her weapon. She had spent 2 years poisoning Sarah against me, preparing for this moment when she could traumatize me all over again. The next few weeks were a nightmare. Sarah brought baby Jessica to every family gathering and made a point of using her name frequently and loudly. She'd say things like, "Jessica is such a good baby, nothing like the dramatic child some people were," clearly referencing me. What made it worse was that Sarah had convinced other family members to question my version of events. She'd shared Jessica Morrison's revisionist history with our cousins and aunts, suggesting that maybe I had been the real problem all along. Family members who had supported me for years started treating me with suspicion. My parents tried to stay neutral, but I could see doubt creeping into their expressions when Sarah would share Jessica's alternative version of our middle school years. The solidarity that had held our family together during my recovery was cracking under the pressure of Jessica's manipulation. The breaking point came at Christmas dinner. Sarah made a toast to her daughter, talking about how the name Jessica represented new beginnings and letting go of old resentments. She looked directly at me while saying it, making it clear that the toast was really about my supposed failure to move on. I excused myself and went outside to cry, overwhelmed by the realization that Jessica had successfully turned my own sister into her proxy 15 years later. When my mother found me, I told her I couldn't continue attending family events if Sarah was going to use them as opportunities to re-traumatize me. That's when my mother finally saw what was really happening. She realized that Sarah's behavior wasn't just about a name choice. It was about deliberately causing me pain while pretending to be the reasonable one. She confronted Sarah directly about her cruelty and her secret relationship with Jessica Morrison. Sarah's response revealed just how deep Jessica's manipulation had gone. She accused me of turning our mother against her and said that everyone who supported my position was enabling my victim mentality. She threatened to cut contact with the family if we didn't stop criticizing her parenting choices. But then something unexpected happened. My mother asked to see the Facebook messages between Sarah and Jessica. As she read through 2 years of conversations, her face went white. Jessica hadn't just been giving her side of the story. She had been systematically coaching Sarah on how to undermine my credibility and isolate me from family support. The messages revealed Jessica's true intentions. She had specifically sought out Sarah on social media after learning about my success as an adult. She had spent months building trust before slowly introducing doubts about my character and my memories. She had even suggested the idea of naming the baby Jessica as a way to help your sister finally move on. It was a masterpiece of psychological manipulation designed to accomplish what Jessica couldn't do as a 13-year-old, completely destroy my sense of safety and belonging in my own family. When confronted with evidence of how she had been used, Sarah finally began to understand what had happened. She realized that Jessica had played her perfectly, using her desire to be seen as the reasonable, mature sister against both me and herself. The reckoning that followed was painful but necessary. Sarah had to acknowledge that she had allowed herself to become a weapon in someone else's war against me. She had to confront the fact that her choices had re-traumatized me and damaged our family relationships. Most importantly, she had to decide what she was going to do about her daughter's name. After weeks of soul-searching and family therapy sessions, Sarah made a difficult choice. She legally changed her daughter's name to Emma, explaining to friends and family that she had discovered the original name had painful associations she hadn't fully understood. Jessica Morrison's final attempt to destroy me had backfired spectacularly. Instead of tearing my family apart, it had ultimately brought us closer together and exposed her continued toxicity. Sarah blocked Jessica on all social media and committed to rebuilding the trust she had damaged through her manipulation. Today, my niece Emma is 3 years old and completely unaware of the drama surrounding her original name. She calls me Aunt Sarah and loves when I bring her art supplies. My relationship with my sister has been rebuilt on a foundation of honesty about how manipulation can turn family members against each other. I still struggle with the name Jessica when I encounter it in daily life, but I've learned that bullies like Jessica Morrison never really change. They just get more sophisticated in how they cause pain. The most important thing is recognizing their tactics and refusing to let them use the people you love as weapons against you. If you're watching this and you've experienced bullying that others have dismissed or questioned, know that your memories and experiences are valid. Some people will try to gaslight you about your trauma, sometimes even people in your own family. But the truth of what happened to you matters, and you deserve to be believed and supported. Don't forget to subscribe to Viral Family Tales for more stories about surviving family manipulation and toxic relationships. We share new content every single day, so hit that notification bell to never miss an upload. If this story resonated with you, please like and comment below with your own experiences. Your engagement helps us reach more people who might need to hear these stories. And remember that your truth matters, no matter who tries to convince you otherwise.